Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or maybe good morning to some of the participants. On this occasion of the third Tokyo Global Dialogue, thank you very much for your participation. I am Sasae of Japan Institute of International Affairs. Due to the COVID pandemic following last year, we are holding this meeting in a virtual format. However, we have world-renowned experts in our discussion, and also we received the message from Prime Minister Kishida, and also we have a keynote presentation by Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Hayashi, in a video format, and we are very much grateful for your participation from Japan and from abroad. As you may know, JIIA in 2019, in celebrating the 60th anniversary, reported for the first time Strategic Annual Report, and then hosted the first Tokyo Global Dialogue. It is a part of the activities that I have been focusing on, namely to share the results of research and studies at the Institute in both Japanese and English in an effective manner. And this was received very positively and thus became a regular event. The theme of the Strategic Annual Report 2021 and the third Tokyo Global Dialogue are contested values, technologies, and oceans, intensifying US-China competition, and international response. Today and tomorrow, we're going to discuss, among others, a crisis over Ukraine, as well as recent development in the international community, as well as the outlook. First, I'd like to refer to the current crisis over Ukraine. The ongoing Russian military offensive is in violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, overturning the fundamental European security architecture since the end of the Cold War. The use of force by Russia is in violation of the United Nations Charter and international law. It presents truly grave challenges to the rule-based international order, including the principle of not accepting unilateral changes to the status quo by force. Furthermore, President Putin's remarks regarding Russia's nuclear forces represents a policy of using nuclear weapons as the means of threat, which is totally unacceptable and heightens the international tension unilaterally. It is also clear that the current crisis and the international response to it will have significant ramifications directly and indirectly to the security in the Indo-Pacific region. Those countries that share the fundamental values, in particular, the G7 members, including Japan, continue their diplomatic efforts to prevent the military offensive by Russia and to the very end. They are responding swiftly once the invasion started by deciding sanction measures one after another in close coordination. It is a strong hope that Russia will immediately end its military offensive and withdraw its forces from Ukraine, and that the disputes will be resolved through meaningful diplomatic negotiations. It is vital for supporting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine for the European security, as well as for restoring and upholding the stable international order, providing the cornerstone for global peace and prosperity, that the international community is united in delivering the message that it will not recognize the change of status quo by force, and demonstrates this resolve in a concrete manner by taking effective measures. Naturally, there will be participants at this year's dialogue who do not share such views and positions. The Tokyo Global Dialogue, as its name suggests, provides a platform for free international dialogue. And therefore, we welcome lively discussions. And in fact, that points to the importance of the freedom of speech that we are striving to defend at all costs. While the international community is focusing on Ukraine, it is also important to watch closely the moves by the DPRK. Last year, North Korea conducted missile launches of various types aimed at diversifying and improving the reliability of its nuclear weapons delivery system. North Korea has accelerated such activities this year by conducting as many as 7 missile launches in January alone. They conducted the latest launch on February 27, that is just 3 days ago. In particular, the launch of intermediate-range ballistic missiles further heightens the tension in Northeast Asia, presenting an even more serious threat to Japan's security. Going ahead, if there is no progress in the US-DPRK relations, it is possible that North Korea will resume ICBM launches or nuclear tests. The international community needs to share the recognition of the increasing threat posed by North Korea and renew its efforts to enhance the deterrence and to advance the dialogue based on its principled position on the DPRK's denuclearization. Now, I'd like to turn to the strategic annual report in sharing with you some of the highlights and outlook of 2021. According to Strategic Annual Report 2021, it defines the strategic competition between the United States and China as a competition between superpowers that share or that have the different governance model based upon different values. And such competition is most acutely manifested in the Indo-Pacific region, and that in addition to military and security area, now it has impact on other areas such as the supply chain of the advanced technologies and strategic resources to be secured. I'm sure that there are those that would share the views as such. Of course, there would be others with different views. And the United States consider that the competition with China is going to be a long-lasting over value and governance model. That is a competition between democracy versus autocracy. And thus, it is now strengthening the partnership with allied nations such as Japan, Australia, India, among others, including Quad and G7 and NATO or AUKUS. And in view of that, China responded strongly to such definition by the United States on its relationship and human rights-centric diplomatic policies. And there are areas where two superpowers are cooperating, including the global challenges such as climate change, but overall, we don't see the sign of the actions by two countries to manage the relationship, the overall relationship between the two. And in the polarized world of democracy versus autocracy, we are seeing the increasing closer ties between China and Russia. And also, in addition to rising tension around Taiwan, due to the military capability modernization by North Korea, the security environment in Northeast Asia is increasingly harsh and stringent, and ASEAN countries and Indo-Pacific are now faced with various challenges, including the development in Myanmar and the challenges brought about by COVID pandemic. In the meantime, Europe is now taking on extremely critical views toward China, while Russia is attempting to raise tension against the Western world while deepening the partnership with China. And also in Middle East, we saw the withdrawal of the U.S. forces from Afghanistan and the return of Taliban, resulting in the transformation of a regional order. And in this context, we also conduct analysis on the multilateralism and challenges. And now, according to such an analysis, various issues, outlook, as well as recommendations are included in this report. Among others, Japan is standing on the forefront of a strategic competition between the United States and China, which is going to be long-lasting. Therefore, Japan should further strive to promote the maintenance and strengthening of international order based upon democracy and rule together with the United States. And when the US-China competition over technology hegemony is widening, Japan should at the same time try to promote the well-balanced initiatives on economic security in both domestic and foreign policies. And also, it is eminently required that the core infrastructure and digital infrastructure, safety, security, as well as support to private sector and research organizations, as well as data rulemaking, have to be promoted. In view of increasingly harsh Northeast Asian environment in terms of security, Japan should consider adaptive security policies and diplomacy to the demand of the times, and in fact have to consider how to drastically improve its defense capability. As in the case of Germany declaration recently, we are seeing the development in other countries in strengthening their defense capability, and therefore the time demands the defense spending increase to a level of 2%. And in fact, the discussion on the ability to attack enemy base is not just a discussion of for or against, but rather it should be discussed in the context of deterrence. In the Indo-Pacific region, Japan will continue to promote cooperation through Quad as a framework that would contribute to free and open Indo-Pacific Ocean. And by strengthening the cooperation in the field of security together with the United States and Australia and the United Kingdom through the framework of Quad and AUKUS, especially in promoting FOIP, we have to consider multifaceted approaches, including strengthening the cooperation with ASEAN and European countries. As for the request for accession to CPTPP, we need to deal with such a request while maintaining the high standard, the principle of market access and rules. At the same time, it is expected that Japan has to focus more on human rights and other values and on its diplomatic front. Japan has been making efforts in that respect, but I believe we need to double that effort. In doing so, with European nations that share fundamental values, we have to consider how we can go about strengthening the cooperation bilaterally as well as through EU and NATO For instance, we can think of the advanced technology supply chain comprising democratic nations and the promotion of multilateral the cooperation combining value and technology, and in fact, both of them have to be part of that initiative. I mentioned earlier about the recent development involving Russia, and I believe Japan needs to redefine its views on Russia. In fact, Japan has to respond in a different way, taking into account the security and strategic interest. At the same time, it is expected that in Middle East, that on important issues such as Afghanistan, peace in Middle East, and the nuclear issue of Iran, Japan has to continue to contribute positively. And in terms of the multilateralism, Japan should take an initiative in working strategically on climate change and vaccine supply to developing countries, both on its own as well as a part of international activities. Later on, we have a roundtable participated by experts from countries including the United States, China, and Russia, discussing US-China competition, as well as recent international development, including crisis on Ukraine, its outlook, as well as the challenges and issues of the diplomacy of Japan. In the morning tomorrow, we have 2 sessions on US-China competition, and then there will be the 3 sessions on oceans, values and technologies, a multilateral response in the afternoon. And as has been referred to, in different sessions, I expect there will be discussion and opinions expressed on the situation on Ukraine, and hope that you would stay with us until the end of the program. I'd like to once again welcome all of you for your participation and conclude my opening remarks.